Hello Raptors fans, and welcome to Raptors Report. Today we're going to be talking about the Raptors series with the Boston Celtics, as well as the game boycotts that almost brought the NBA playoffs to a screeching halt. Before we start, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more in-depth Raptors content. Let's jump in. First, let's start with the series that everybody has been waiting for. The Raptors, in their 25-year existence, have never faced the Boston Celtics in the playoffs. And yet, there's been a simmering feud between the two fan bases for at least a few seasons now. I think the reason for the feud is the similarity between the two franchises as of late. Similar records, a scrappy reputation, same conference, same division, getting whooped by LeBron in the playoffs over and over again. It's like looking at a twisted version of yourself in the mirror and not liking what you see. Now the Cold War between the Raptors and Celtics is about to get hot. The Celtics are a very strong team, with a powerful blend of scoring and defense, and two emerging stars that should power their franchise for the next decade. The biggest issue with both teams at the moment are injury-related. Gordon Hayward and Kyle Lowry both experienced ankle injuries in the first round of the playoffs, with Hayward's being significantly more severe. The reports are that Hayward will leave the bubble, and will likely not return unless the Celtics move past the Raptors. Kyle Lowry's injury does not seem as severe, but as Raptors fans know, Lowry is an integral part of the Raptors' offensive and defensive identity, and injuries have limited his effectiveness in the past. Continuing with this point, one of the Celtics' issues all season has been their depth. Their starting five is arguably the best in the entire NBA, but they lack punch off of the bench, especially in the scoring department, and have had to rely on post-scoring from Enes Kanter and spot scoring from Brad Wanamaker to bridge the gap between the starters and the reserves. Marcus Smart is the guy who will likely take Gordon's spot in the starting lineup, and he's made big leaps offensively over the past few years, but the question to who will replace him off the bench is a bit more troubling. Hayward's 17 points per game and 38% three-point shooting percentage might be a bit more difficult to replace on the Celtics than you might think. Let's take a look at the Celtics depth chart. The Celtics have 5 guards and forwards that play 30-plus minutes per game, with Hayward being one of them, and the center minutes are split between Tice, Kanter, and Grant Williams, with the rest of the noteworthy minutes being played by Brad Wanamaker and Semi Ojeleye. Brad Wanamaker is a solid bench point guard with a feel-good story, making the league at 29, having played overseas and signed a 1-year contract with the Celtics that they extended for this season. Rookie Grant Williams is an undersized but strong defensive big with a limited offensive game. Semi Ojeleye is another strong defensive forward who's learned to shoot the three a little bit. While these players have their uses, only Wanamaker is a player who can generate any kind of offense, and with Hayward out, that will be something that the Celtics need to replace. My prediction is that Brad Stevens will ride his starters much harder, pumping the playing time for Brown, Tatum, and Smart from the low 30s they played in the regular season to around 40 minutes per game. Versus the Sixers, this is essentially what happened. Smart started the game, and he, Tatum, and Brown all played over 36 minutes per game. Stevens, with his roster very light on wing players, experimented with giving rookie wing Romeo Langford some minutes, but he's clearly not ready for playoff minutes at this point in his career. Yet even with Hayward out, the 76ers basically had no answer for Tatum, Brown, or Kemba, who scorched them all series long. Those 3 players for the Celtics are one of the most dynamic offensive trios in the league. I talk a bit about the matchup versus the Celtics in my Path to the Finals video, where I go in-depth on the Celtics squad. The road to victory for the Celtics is very straightforward. Tatum, Brown, and Kemba need to have strong offensive performances. The role players have to chip in just enough, and they have to clamp the Raptors down defensively. Tatum has looked very good in the bubble, with a lot of big scoring performances. Kemba and Brown have also looked good too. The Celtics would love it if Tatum could erupt for huge 30-plus point performances and take the scoring slack off of the other guys. The Raptors have more bullets in the gun, so to speak. Lowry, Siakam, Van Vliet, Powell, and Ibaka all have the potential to pop off for big scoring games. If they want to beat the Celtics, they need to contain and load up on the three big scorers for the Celtics, and try and make the Celtics go to their less offensively talented role players to beat them. The Raptors' enemy so far in the bubble, and also this season as a whole, has been offensive droughts, where they go long periods of time without being able to score. Fred VanVleet has been the Raptors' slump buster, and his ability to shoot off of the dribble and make big shots has been crucial to winning tough, grinded-out games that this series should have a lot of. Overall, I'm very excited for this series. It'll be a big test for both teams, and should be an epic chess match between two extremely smart coaching staffs led by Nick Nurse and Brad Stevens. Last, but probably more important, is the topic of the near shutdown of the NBA playoffs. The Raptors were one of a few teams that decided to boycott games after the shooting of Jacob Blake by police. Raptors players made a number of statements, all echoing their extreme frustration with the lack of progress being made with regards to police violence, with Norm Powell and Fred VanVleet in particular doing a great job of explaining the hopelessness and anger that Black Americans feel right now. Along with other players, notably LeBron James, the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Bucks, all making overtures towards canceling the season, it seemed as though the nascent bubble playoffs would be over just a few games in. After a tense and apparently volatile Players Association meeting, the players agreed to go ahead with the postseason. In my video about resuming the NBA season, I discussed some of the reasons why I think that players might be obligated to go along with playing the games, even if they don't really feel like it. The most pressing issue is money. NBA ratings haven't been very strong recently, and the lucrative TV deal they signed 6 years ago will expire relatively soon, meaning that canceling the season and potentially tearing up the collective bargaining agreement could put the players in a precarious position, where they could see significant pay cuts when a new CBA is drawn up. I think this played a big factor in having the season go ahead. And that about wraps up this week's installment of Raptors Report. Please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and also follow me on Twitter, @RapsReport, to hear my thoughts on the Raptors and the NBA. Last but not least, thank you for watching Raptors Report, your source for in-depth NBA content.